Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One Pod Vader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to a very special SuperFan Battle edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, Pod Vader here to let you know everything you're going to need to know about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders Sunday Night Football Battle. This one's a doozy. This one's for all the marbles. It's a rematch between Nick, our Chiefs superfan, and Monty, our Raider superfan. They will go toe-to-toe, and Nick will pay up on his wager from last time. Hopefully, there will be another wager. I cannot wait. I have not listened. But before I give you the main event, I need to tell you about a new partner to the Next Fan Up podcast, and we are very, very, very happy about this. And as you can tell, my alarm is also very happy about this. We are welcoming Thrive Fantasy to the friends of the Next Fan Up podcast. That's right. Come prop up on Thrive Fantasy this season. It's a daily fantasy sports app for player props. They've eliminated the need to do countless hours of research because they only ask you about the top tier athletes in any sport. If it's the NFL, choose 10 out of the 20 player prop options to build your lineup. Each prop has a fantasy point total associated with the over or under based on the likelihood to occur, and the more points a selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points to win a share of the prize pool. Thrive has awarded over $1.4 million in prizes since launching in 2018, and they have a ton of cash guaranteed for NFL Bet. So listen, you're going to go to thrivefantasy.com or click on their app and download their app on your phone. You're going to sign up for an account, and you're going to use promo code NEXTFANUP, NEXTFANUP, all one word. Users enter that code upon sign up, and when you make your first deposit, a minimum of $20, you're going to receive an instant $50 bonus. So listen, there's no losing here. It's a win-win situation for you right off the bat. Download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store or Play Store, or visit www.thrivefantasy.com. Sign up and prop up today. All right. Now, ding, 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 I believe we have our Superfan Battle, Chiefs versus Raiders.
It is football night in America. The Kansas City Chiefs against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Kansas City Chiefs' first trip to Vegas in an official capacity, as far as I'm aware. And I am your Kansas City Chiefs superfan, Nick, of course. I'm joined by Monty, my Raiders counterpart nemesis. How are you doing, Monty?
I am feeling fantastic, Nick. I haven't felt this good in a couple of years. How about you?
Less than perfect, but we're coming off the bye. We're getting healthy, and undefeated this year. Not a single loss to worry about.
Yeah, except for that one in Arrowhead. Woo! Still feel like I'm driving the bus around the stadium right now.
All because of some offhand comment that the bus driver apparently said. It's all that it took.
Hopefully that guy flies out to Vegas with you and starts running his mouth.
I guess so. And with that in mind, I mean, there has been a lot of national media hype in terms of the bulletin board material for this one, which I guess it's fun. It's been a while since, I feel like this rivalry has had a bit of juice to it, just because it has been a little lopsided in the last few years. So I'm looking forward to this one. It does happen to also be, the Chiefs coming off a bye. Andy Reid is pretty good in those scenarios, but nonetheless, it is the Raiders defending their brand new home turf. I guess on the positive side as well is that the Raiders did actually play reasonably well defensively against the Chiefs in the first matchup. The Chiefs still put up like 32 points, but they got to Mahomes early and often. Do you think that in the intervening games that have the Raiders continue to show that kind of growth on defense, are you going to still have some teeth there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little misleading. That game against Cleveland was like one of those super windy games, so nobody's offense was looking very good. And then last week, some pundits seem to think Drew Lock is the second best quarterback in the division, but he apparently really, really, really bad. So I don't know if that's a good barometer either, but they were able to get a little bit of pressure on him. The last time the Raiders played the Chiefs, I would say, was Cleve Farrell's best game as a Raider in his career. And unfortunately, he tested positive for COVID, so he will not be there this time. So I'm not sure. They've been tweaking the defense a little bit, but I think it's going to be difficult to get pressure on Mahomes this time around.
Yeah, well, the Chiefs have their virus issues on their side of the ball as well. Both their tackles, Mitch Schwartz, who had been dealing with an injury anyway, and Eric Fisher are on the COVID list. But it sounds like both are it's a purely contract tracing thing, and that they likely could be elevated before the game. But there's not been any confirmation of negative tests or anything like that would get them off the list. So for now, that's a real concern. The Chiefs don't have both their starting tackles, which are the strength of that offensive line. That's an issue given how poorly the line played in general against the Raiders last time. And the Chiefs also maybe down a couple of wide receivers, and that Sammy Watkins has been, he's currently sitting as out. He has been practicing for a few weeks with a hamstring injury. Granted, you think coming off the bye, maybe now he's finally had enough time to rest that. And Mecole Hardman, I think, did test positive. Either way, he's on the list, but I think he was the one Chief that did actually get a positive test for COVID. So, they're a little bit lighter in the weapons department, but the Chiefs do still have weapons for days, and it's generally Travis Kelce that is the Raiders' bane on game day. But I did see that there was that pretty sweet catch by Kwiatkowski. How has that linebacker group come together?
Kwiatkowski is easily the best free agent acquisition the Raiders have had. They spent a lot of money on some bigger names, but he, I think he's still a little bit hampered with his torn pectoral muscle or near tear, but he's a stud, man. Like, he's a really good player. I think Trayvon Mullen is a little banged up. He left on and off the field last time, and that's kind of who they hope can run step for step with Tyreek Hill. And I don't know how it feels like every week is like 2 months in 2020. But the last time the Raiders played, I think Reek Hill really torched Trayvon Mullen when he was healthy. So I think that's going to be a problem. But our other linebacker, Corey Littleton, actually gave a little bit of bulletin board material for Kelce last time around. I don't know if you remember. There was some stat going around that while he was a Ram, he had been able to, at least slow down Kelce, and Kelce got wind of that. So I think they made him pay last time around. So I got a feeling you're right about Kelce torching this group one more time, but you probably won't be the only one. I got a feeling Reek Hill's going to run. My only hope is that your offensive linemen continue to have holding penalties so those touchdowns get called back.
Yeah, there have been definitely some big touchdowns that have come off the board, and really it seems like the last couple of years against the Raiders due to holding calls that were, I don't know, I don't think that impactful to the blocking, but that is my Chiefs' opinion. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how the touches distribute themselves, because Tyreek Hill, he still has fine numbers this year, but I think fantasy owners aren't particularly happy because he's had quite a few games where he's only had 5 or fewer touches. Sometimes there's usually a touchdown in there, but that's been kind of one of the interesting changes in terms of the continuing evolution of Mahomes, is just that he's been spreading it out way more than he'd already even was. And the Chiefs, from a game plan standpoint, are perfectly comfortable, playing it kind of any way. And now they have both, CEH and Lev Bell in the backfield. It's like, okay, if you're like, if teams are going to, only put 5 men in the box or whatever, it's like, fine, we'll just beat you with running the ball. We don't really care. And they can just kind of play it anyway. So especially with a few guys maybe missing, it's going to be, I think we're definitely going to see a different Chiefs game plan than whatever they showed in the previous game. But also, I do think, like, that bulletin board material, some of that is a little real in that, Gruden and Reed are apparently good buddies. And so, it's not that Reed tends not to be super bitter and like try to run up the score and do things like that. But in a sense, he's got to show up his friend over in Vegas. And I would not be surprised if Reed would shake out and let hang out a little bit more gadgetry and some of the stuff that he might have normally saved for the playoffs. There's going to be some weird plays in this game, and it should be a fun one to watch on Sunday night for everybody. And to move over to the other side of the ball, Josh Jacobs continues to be great. And also, it seems like Ruggs is getting back into the action. Are we finally seeing like an offense that, I don't know, I guess Derek Carr can produce in, that it has actually some balance to it?
Yeah, I think that so the first time these guys played, totally shocking. They took some deep shots to Ruggs, and even Nelson Aguilar had a long touchdown pass. And I guess I wasn't really expecting that. I think the game plan versus Denver, where you're just handing it off to Booker and Jacobs, is kind of what I anticipated them trying to do. But Carr's willing to air it out a little bit this year. He's making some plays with his feet too, either keeping plays alive or just running just far enough to get the first down. So, I mean, this is probably the best Carr has played since he had that catastrophic injury when the Raiders went to the playoffs last time. So I think, we're missing our tackles too. Colton Miller didn't play last week. He's questionable to play this week. I hope he does because Big Trent Brown is out. But the running attack is really, that's what I said last time around, and I was dead wrong. They're going to just try to feed the ball to Jacobs, try to keep Mahomes on the sideline. And then lo and behold, they were throwing 70-yard bombs to Henry Ruggs. So I don't know. We'll see. Henry Ruggs, same thing. Fantasy owners probably disappointed with him too. He doesn't get all that many touches, but he does stretch out the field, which opens things up for everyone else. So I would expect Waller to have a little bit of play. And then Brian Edwards is finally back and healthy. He played his first action last week. I'd like to see him make some big plays too. But this young Raiders team is, starting to believe that, they can at least hang with anyone. And so if they can perform and not do any penalties, not, shoot themselves in the foot, hopefully it'll be a good game. But I think you're right. Andy Reid's probably going to try to twist the knife on Chucky a little bit in prime time with the whole world watching.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if the Chiefs actually managed to or even tried very hard to stop the run, because it's just been years they have been terrible at stopping the run through a couple of different coordinators, and under Spagnuolo it seems like they almost don't try that hard to do it, just because the whole defense is built to get off the ball on third down. So it's like, okay, you can move the ball for 30, 40 yards, but eventually you're going to get a negative play or a penalty or something like that. And it's going to be a 3rd and 10 or a 3rd and 8 or something. And that's when, with all the pass rush and a pretty good defensive backfield overall, that's like versatile and instinctive, it's going to make it just really hard for you to get get through, I guess, move the chains in that scenario. But, the Chiefs have had some games here where they've only held the ball on offense for like 5 minutes of the first half. And so, at some point, you do have to care a little bit. I think they've been banged up a bit in their front seven. And so maybe coming off the bye, they don't have to throw a ton of assets at stopping the run and still are a little bit more effective. We'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being like a lot of Chiefs games where, the other side decides to ground and pound and basically are able to do that. But, and maybe it's close or, close-ish in the first half. But then, there's just going to be, at some point, the Chiefs are going to score 3 or 4 touchdowns in a row, and all of that work to eat clock and whatnot doesn't really matter at, the fourth quarter when you have a couple of scores to make up.
I think 100% agree. And I think what's frustrating for the Raiders is on the opposite side of that coin. If they do get into a 3rd and long situation and their defense is out there and they need to get off the field, every single week they're giving up huge plays on 3rd down, like little checkdowns for 3rd and 20 will turn into a first down. and it's super frustrating to watch. So the Raiders aren't good enough to overcome stuff like that, and the Chiefs are, because they can score at the drop of a hat. So the Raiders are going to need to put together another big, perfect game. A name I'll throw out there to keep an eye on, especially if your tackles are out. Arden Key is starting to turn it on a little bit. And if Klee is out, I expect him to get a few more snaps. So if Arden Key can get to Mahomes and Jonathan Abram can avoid getting personal fouls for 15 yards, a crack, hopefully we'll have a good game here. But, yeah, really a good game. Speaking of the last time these guys met, though, I think we did have a little something on the line, and correct me if I'm wrong, but were you going to give me an in-depth preview of the Darren Waller rap album that came out?
Yes, it was, true to form. My very smug wager proposal was that if the Raiders failed just to cover, I think it was like a 13.5-point spread in the last matchup, that if they failed to do so, that you would have to review a rap album by Chiefs corner Bashaud Breeland. If they did, I would have to review one by your very own tight end, Darren Waller. Obviously, they covered and won. And so, yeah, I've spent some time familiarizing myself with the work of one D. Wall. And, it's a very inconspicuous pen name he has. And according to Spotify, I joined D. Wall's 1,768 monthly listeners this week in order to review his album Wall Street. And before you say, wow, so many Wall puns, Waller can't possibly think of more. Waller's previous album was entitled Better Call Wall. Great show, by the way.
Has he got any club bangers on there?
It's kind of up and down. I mean, overall, I'd say it's much like the 3.6 Rontgen initially detected at the Chernobyl meltdown. It's not great, not terrible. It starts out like pretty good with the main song, like introducing Wall Street. And then like the next track, like D. Wall's producer came up with some pretty nice keyboard synths, for the track Sun in My Eyes, which features the recurring line, can't keep the sun out of my eyes, can't see bleep, which I took as meaning essentially the Raiders haven't even lost this rematch yet. They're already lining up the excuses, Yeah. But anyways, the album's third track, SHSW, which apparently stands for Somehow, Some Way, is actually kind of easily my favorite of the bunch. They slow it down a bit. They add in some ghostly background vocals that really give it a kind of a solid ambiance. And I'm actually thinking about adding this one to a playlist, because if nothing else, then maybe the fractions of a cent that Spotify is going to send to D-Wall for the plays that come up on my playlist, might help convince him to quit this football silliness and get back in the studio. But unfortunately, after that song, the album really plunges into like blander territory. It's like fairly ordinary beats, lots of auto-tune. And in general, it sounds a lot like the homebrew tracks I see dudes in my neighborhood of Flatbush, Brooklyn here recording music videos in the street for. But by the way, check out the Flatbush Zombies. They have some good stuff. So I mean, overall, I would give the album a C+, which is far higher than I expected to be able to give it, frankly. And
somehow,
it was certainly
some way. That's the motto for this weekend. Somehow, some way. Let's do it.
There you go. Either way, it was much better as just a general audiovisual experience than Catching Kelsey. So.
Oh my God, that took so long for me to watch that season. Easily the worst bet I've made as a super fan of the Next Fan Up podcast.
Well, before we get into, I guess X factors and predictions and whatnot, let's see what are we going to put on the line here. I hear that you have come up with a very, very incriminating photograph to involve in this one.
Yeah, I think since you have been quick to remind me of the many times Derek Carr has failed against the Chiefs, and not only failed, but just looked terrible, playing his worst football. He did a commercial. I forget what the company was for, but he's wearing a jean jacket with little frilly wings. And I think if the Raiders can pull this one off, that is going to be your Twitter avatar and your Next Fan Up Slack group avatar, at least until the playoffs start.
At least until both, Derek Carr is, can be off my avatar and out of the playoffs once again. Yeah, okay, I can do that. And Unfortunately, I didn't have time today to come up with a good one, but just because I know that Kelsey has a special place in your heart, after seeing him in a variety of romantic situations, I'm going to find some really good, very hunky picture of Kelsey for you to switch your avatars to.
Yeah, gross. Kelsey is going to get arrested in Vegas on Saturday night and not be a factor this weekend. And I think that's what we got to look forward to. I'm just waiting for the Adam Schefter tweet to confirm it.
I am mildly worried about this because he had been a one-woman man for like the last 2 or 3 years. And apparently I totally missed it. He broke up with his like Instagram model girlfriend in like August or something like that. So, always something to keep an eye on there. But all the more reason why I bet he's got even thirstier Instagram photos there to choose from for avatars. So I'm looking forward to that. But anyways,
probably in the works right now.
Yeah, and so in terms of X factors, like he would be a tempting one, obviously, but I think I'm actually going to say Lev Bell just because we haven't seen a ton of him. He seems like it was a sort of thing where they wanted to, give him some looks, but probably they weren't going to like really design a whole lot of stuff for him until deeper into the season. And now that we're like past the bye, it seems like now is the time when we start to see some more of that come out. He's also the better pass protector than CEH because CEH is just small. And so in a game where the Chiefs may be a little shorthanded on the O-line, they're definitely going to need that extra body to block for Pat. So I'm looking forward to seeing a cool Lev Bell game. And yeah, what is yours?
It's got to be Jonathan Abram with their quarterback. They've been bringing him up on the line and blitzing. And then that, of course, gives you a split second before Mahomes goes over the top. So with Abrams coming down to try to make a play, the defensive player of the AFC last week, Jeff Heath, who had a couple interceptions, I think those guys got to be on the same page and make sure. So I'd like to see a big play out of Jonathan Abram, even if it's just one lights out hit on Travis Kelce. That would definitely be fun to watch. So
got to break that other collarbone somehow.
Yeah, I'd love to see a broken Kelce collarbone. Good. I love that. We're on the same page.
Didn't Abram chip a chunk off of his, though, earlier this year on a camera or something?
He's fun to watch, man. Like, he gets a lot of penalties, but, man, he plays like that Steve Atwater type mentality where he is just going full speed nonstop. And he's either going to hit your guy or friendly fire and hit one of our guys, but he's kind of fun to watch. I like him. He's an old school throwback kind of player. Young Kenneth, the Charger superfan, should watch. That's how football used to be played.
Yes, back in the so far back in the late 90s, long before Ken was developing memories. Yes. So from a prediction standpoint, I do think the Chiefs are going to, they're going to put some points up here. But, the Raiders are going to, I'm sure, get theirs, maybe perhaps largely in garbage time. But my prediction, I'm going to say that the Chiefs win this one 45-27.
Wow, 45 would be a drubbing. My prediction is that the Raiders defense will be on the sidelines as the game winds down, and Derek Carr will be driving the Raiders for the go-ahead touchdown, and it's going to be something closer to like 34-31 Vegas wins with home field advantage and that piped-in crowd noise.
With 12 untimed downs with 0 seconds left in the end zone?
Whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes. As long as there's no index cards or tuck rule calls. I mean, it all goes both ways.
I suppose so. It all evens out in the end. Well, it's going to be a fun one. And I got to say, I am glad that the rivalry is back to some extent. I'm glad that this is going to be a fun game. And I look forward to watching and talking some smack with you as it's going.
Yeah, if the Raiders win, I think then we can. I'll stop being cautiously optimistic and just be optimistic if they can win again when the Chiefs are expecting it. But this team's starting to come around.
Got that 7th spot in the playoffs, just firmly in their sights.
They're looking for the 5th. They want to be the 5th spot, and if they win this weekend, they'll be knocking on the door for the division. For
the first time since 2020, or 2002, is actually That was actually the other stat I wanted to throw out at some point, just, because I think I buried it somewhere deep into this review that I wrote up some notes on. That's like, yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've had to
Ken probably remembers 2002, doesn't he?
Maybe. I'm not sure Mahomes does, but the last win was, the Raiders' first win against the Chiefs since 2014, and the Raiders are now 13-25 against the Chiefs since the Clinton administration. So, congratulations.
Yeah, but there were a lot of coaches there. Now Chucky's back in charge. He seemed to remember how to beat the Chiefs.
We shall see. It's going to be a good one.
All right, man. Hope you enjoy it. Cheers.
Cheers.
There goes Nick. There goes Monty. I cannot wait to see what happens on Sunday night. Nextfanup@gmail.com is our email address. At NFU Podcast is how to get us on Twitter. Facebook.com/NFU Podcast, a great way to continue the conversation. See all the recipes Doc has sent. Doc did send us a Week 11 recipe, so I'll have that up on our social media and our website, nextfanup.wordpress.com. So we'll get all that up. We'll get that going. Don't forget thrivefantasy.com or download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store or Play Store. Download that app, sign up, use the promo code NEXTFANUP, deposit $20, get an instant $50 bonus on the spot. Don't forget thrivefantasy.com. NextFanUp is your promo code. I'm Pod Vader. We will see you next week for Thanksgiving Day week action. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.